Sir Callie and the Champions of Helston by Esme Symes Smith. Champions of Helston is the first book in the Sir Callie series, following the titular character, Sir Callie, as they work to try to become a Knight of Helston. And they obviously are dealing with the struggles of just becoming a knight in general, but also the struggles of being a non-binary individual in a world that still has a lot of bigotry, much like our own. I've seen a lot of comparisons with this book to the works of Tamara Pierce, like Lana and Callie and those characters, and I think that those comparisons are very valid, and that's a good thing. I think especially with the character of Callie reminds me a lot of Callie of Mindolin from Tamara Pierce's works, and, but at the same time, manages to stand out on its own, especially with the focus on Callie's identity and some of the other finer plot details. Sir Callie manages to stand out on its own, aside from being like a Tamora Pierce clone. Overall, the writing style of this book is fantastic. Esme Symes Smith does an excellent job of writing a story that is fast-paced, but is also at the same time very character-focused and character-driven. Primarily focused, obviously, on Callie themselves, as well as their friends Elwyn, Edwin, and Willow, and kind of the struggles that all four of them are dealing with living under this sort of antiquated society of Helston itself. And so I really appreciated that, and honestly, it was a very engaging read. If I'm to levy any sort of criticisms of this book, I really just have two main ones. The first one is just that the third act of the book was too long. There's a point where I was reading, and it felt like the book was about to be ending, right? The main primary conflict was being resolved. Like maybe we'd have a chapter or two of kind of like epilogue sort of thing where, hey, characters are now peaceful, things are happy, yay, yay, yay. And then we continued for like another 4 or 5 chapters, and there was still conflict. And so that just kind of dragged on. Plus, I felt like those last 4 or 5 chapters sort of muddied the message of the novel overall, because it sort of sent a message that the only way to fight bigotry was actually through active violence, and I felt like that muddied the message that the book was trying to tell as a whole. And then the other primary complaint I have is just that Callie themselves was almost too perfect. What I mean by that is just that throughout the story, Callie makes decisions that should cause them to question whether or not they're doing the right thing a little bit. Especially like there's one point where they choose to kind of be a very aggressive and very abrasive, and they never choose to think about, well, is that aggression or is that abrasiveness maybe not the correct way to handle that situation in that moment, Even though there were consequences for it, they're more mad that they got consequences and don't really take time to think about their actions. And I understand part of why, because when you have a character who is non-binary, and who their primary struggle is people telling them, this is how you should be. Oh, you should be acting like a girl. Oh, you should be going by Kaladin, not Callie. I understand the desire to make sure that that character isn't forced to change to fit the requirements of society as a whole. So I understand that. At the same time, it kind of caused Callie to be the most boring character of the bunch. Of the 4 kind of main characters we have, Callie was kind of the most boring because they never underwent any significant change. They never contemplated their actions. They never sought to try to change in any way. Again, not because they needed to change like their person as a whole, but just they never grew as a character. And so that to me was a little weak overall. With all of that being said, I love this book. It is fantastic. I think that having a character set in sort of a medieval society, but also focusing on non-binary representation, which we don't really have a lot of books that focus on non-binary representation. And the fact that this book does it in such an authentic way is fantastic. It's a delightful read overall. And honestly, I've heard that book 2 is even better, so I am very much looking forward to jumping into that one.